There are a lot of questions where you may be given something based on a problem, issue based essay we call it. So sometimes in these issues, the question, the most probable question type is to write what are the causes of that problem and to write its remedial measures. Sometimes the question can also be what problems does this cause and what are the solutions to those problems. For example, now this is something that I want to put across. At times, we know what is the topic, we may have gauged what can be the likely answer that we need to write related to the topic, but we don't pay attention to the question carefully and we end up writing something which the question did not ask. I'll share an example here. Now, let's say the question says that it has often been observed that families are not as close as they used to be. Let's say this is the topic. Families are not as close today as they used to be. Now, the question is what problems does this cause and how can this closeness be brought back? Did we understand the question? Families are not as close as they used to be, is the topic. Now, the questions are there are two things connected here which you need to address, the parts of the question that you need to address. One is what problems does this cause and how can the closeness be brought back? So, okay, let me ask you, if I say families are not close as they used to be, what problems does this cause? Anybody who can think of any problem that this problem can create? Maybe stress, okay. It may create stress, all right. What else? So there can be some kind of emotional impact on the people in a family unit. When they don't have that closeness, there can be stress and anxiety. So, sort of some kind of detrimental impacts on the mental or emotional status of an individual in a family, right? And when that closeness is not there, they may not have somebody to share their problems with. Possibly, they may feel lonely. Yeah, some people feel homesick. But here it is about that they are not as close as they used to be. So, if that closeness is not there, what can be further issues that a family could face? There can be more disputes, they may feel more distant, right? Yeah, loneliness, depression, anything else that comes to your mind? I think the relationship gets more strained and the bond breaks. These could be some likely problems. So, here I would like to bring a small twist. Now, let's say what I asked you was what problems does this cause? Now, if I change the question to why do you think this is happening or what are the causes and what are the solution, do you think you would still write that it is bringing stress, anxiety, homesickness, loneliness or depression? Or maybe relationship gets strained, they get broken? No, because now the question is not asking that. The question is asking what are the causes. What could be the causes that families are not as close as they used to be? Can we think of few? What can be possible causes? Like maybe today people are more career oriented and they devote more time towards their career, and family is not a priority to them these days. So that is bringing about such a situation. Yeah, because they don't have work life balance. Yes. Communication, this is what we are asking, that if they are not close, the lack of communication, maybe the communication gap can be put as a factor, that they may not feel comfortable with one another. With that generation gap, there is an excessive communication gap. Yeah, busy lifestyle, whether it is academics for children or it is work life of adults, everybody is occupied in hundreds of things that they are not able to devote more time, and as a result the bonding also that gets weaker. And maybe they, possibly we can say here, Yogesh, that they are involved in a lot of travel, or they tend to have their life in such a way that half of their day, or most part of their day is consumed in other activities, that family interaction is minimal. Maybe that can be connected. That's a different point. Or possibly maybe the addiction to technology, that also makes us avoid our family ties and be just engrossed in our virtual world. And yes, good point, Jabin, there can be unresolved arguments that creates that discomfort and they don't feel close. Correct. Conflicting attitudes between family members, absolutely. Very good. So now if we see here, we have different other points coming up. Different other points coming up. So if the question had been, what problems does this cause? There's a different answer. What are the causes of the problem? There's a different answer. And let me tell you, just these words, when they are not read properly, you end up giving an answer which you might think as, okay, this is a cause and solution essay. So you need to pay attention when it comes to addressing the question. Just don't look at the topic and start writing whatever you feel like. Pay attention. What is it asking me? Is it asking me to agree or disagree? If it is so, you can't write an answer where you're writing the plus and minuses connected to something. If it is asking you to write, discuss both views and give your opinion, you can't just talk about your opinion. In that 250 word length answer, you need to shed light on two different perspectives also that are given to you. So it's not like an agree disagree essay where we take a stand and we are writing about one particular thing only. Or if it is problem causes solution, we need to pay attention. Is it asking me to write further problems that may generate? Or it is asking me the factors that lead to that problem? Am I making this clear, all of you? Are you able to follow? This is the common mistake that we do not address. Despite being a good user of English, we may not be addressing the question as it is needed. Also, at times, just to add to it, we may we may be addressing it but not adequately. So sometimes your content would be too short. What you are trying to convey, that is not sufficiently addressing that particular answer or that reason that you want to convey. That can also be a reason of not getting a score which can reach a high scoring sample. So ensure, now to give a recap, what are the pointers that we discussed? The mistake is not following the right format, especially with regard to paragraph division. In this, I would also like to add that you should, other than writing answers in bullet points or numbered sentences, you should also not be highlighting any sentence or writing any title to a particular paragraph or title to the entire essay. All that is not needed. Just clear 4 or 5 paragraphs. Whatever you write, even before you write, you should plan. So not planning is another common mistake. And the third mistake, and most common, frequently observed, is this, that people tend to write something which is not asked, or they misunderstand the requirement of the question, and the response, the score will be partial. You may have written the solution, you'll get marks for it, but where are the problems? Whatever has been asked, you've not written that fully, you won't get marks. Right? So keep in mind that these things are taken into consideration. Now, on our YouTube channel, that is Leverage IELTS, you will find lot of other useful and informative videos where you can get many of the issues get addressed. So do ensure that you check out the content, you subscribe to our channel, and see various other skills and common mistakes and most points that we need to follow when we take the exam so that you can get your desired band score. Moving on now to the next common mistake. And this is another interesting one. The question tells you an instruction here that give your answer from your own knowledge and experience and write relevant example. And today, I would like to talk about another common mistake that I see, which is examples. Now, your example in your answer is a part of your entire response where you're trying to justify something by that exemplification. This exemplification should not be given a huge quantity when it comes to the word length that you're going to write, and also its placement. When we write a paragraph, we start with the topic sentence, which shows the main idea of that paragraph. Each para that we write in our answer, every para will have one main idea which we are explaining. So when you do that, remember, now I see a lot of answers where a writer tells me something and then he moves on to the next paragraph and he starts with, for example. Now, if this is an example to the previous idea, which is in the previous paragraph, why is it in a new paragraph? Which brings me to tell you not to begin a paragraph with an example. A paragraph begins with the main idea and goes deeper into its explanation and the reasons. Then the example appears. It cannot start with an example. Also, avoid writing big stories. A lot of people have one tiny idea and a big story which has consumed about 100 words. It is not going to add strength to your content. What are you doing? You're just talking about one day, one particular point in time of your past, you're talking about it. So examples should be concise, they should be relevant, they should be properly placed. Where should be the placement? Wherever you are talking about a main idea, where you want to attach an example, it should be with that paragraph. It cannot be in a paragraph after that, right? So these are the things that you need to avoid, people. So it's not just writing, giving them the relevant content, but also adding information at the right place. That's called the arrangement. And these all you can do appropriately when you plan, which was a second common mistake that I told you. Now let's come to other petty mistakes that you may be making. And this is using expressions or words which are not suitable for writing an essay for an exam. What are these expressions or words that I'm talking about? IELTS essays are expected to be written in a formal style. So, something that we must avoid is using informally sounding words. Like a lot of people use the word stuff, guy, anyways. These are not required in your IELTS writing. Or a lot of idiomatic expressions which may be sounding too informal. So you shouldn't be writing all these, especially words which are in their contracted form. You might be using it in speaking, but in writing, this is strictly like using wanna, gonna, gotcha. You're not going to use that in writing. A big no to that. Plus, there are also words which exist in its contracted form, like using I'm, I've, I'd. Now, these we should avoid in essays. All the academic IELTS test takers, especially for you, please avoid writing them even in your task one, because you have to write everything in a formal style. Contractions, which I have just now uttered, I've, all these can be used possibly in letter writing, but not in essay writing. So, a big no to informal expressions or contractions. When you put an example, Kulvinder, moving on to the previous point, any example is acceptable, but then that example should not be stretched. It should not be stretched in such a way that you end up creating a big story. It can be a, because the question itself says that you write from your own, you write from your own experiences. You can, but when people tend to do so, they get so carried away that they give it a huge proportion when it comes to your answer. That's what we need to avoid, right? Now, talking about another mistake that we get to see, this is corresponding to, now we are, let's say, good users of English. We've got right arrangement of paragraphs. I planned my answer well. I used the right set of words. I did not go informal. I used the correct format and I addressed with relevant information. But there's something where I am still lacking, and that could be not using a range of sentences. It's English language test. So something which is going to be looked at is the parameter which is grammatical range and accuracy. A lot of people feel that if I'm not making mistakes in grammar, I may get a high score. That's not the case. Grammar corresponds to grammatical range and accuracy. So you need to also be bringing a wide variety of sentences, What do I mean by that? So, using sentences which are in active voice, passive voice, simple, making simple sentences some places, compound sentences some places, using complex sentences, making sentences which start with while, or using even though, although, incorporating sentences which start with an if, adding sentences which have a since or a because of, owing to. All this is going to bring about a variety in the style of writing that you have. And as a result, when you're going to use this, eventually in grammatical range and accuracy, the examiner would observe that you are able to show them a range. Otherwise, the entire write up may be too monotonous with just one style of sentence. And that's what we need to completely avoid. Are we all able to follow this, everybody? Yes or no? So there are many things that you can do, Mansuri, to work on your grammar. You can start using, see, you can take the range of sentences that we need to put to use, and you can start practicing them. There are certain, ebooks also which are easily available, through which you can know that, okay, these are certain sentence types, and practice making those sentences. This would be quite vague for me to tell you that just practice, but then have different samples of, types of sentences that you need to incorporate. Maybe, making use of compound sentences, or making use of sentences which are conditional. Like, how do we make sentences with starting with an if? So keep them in front of you and create your own sentences with it. This would allow you to know, okay, there is a sample that you've got, and there is your own, created sentence type, and that will work. So there's no quick fix here, though. If you have exam on 7th, you still have time to work on this. If you're avoiding all these major mistakes, including the major ones and the petty ones, I think you'll be good to go. Yeah. With this, I would like to just add one more kind of a bonus tip, but this is also, I consider to be a mistake which comes under, again, writing in an informal style. And that is when you make it more conversational. Don't write it like a dialogue. For example, using we's and you, like, if you think, let's look at, let's talk about. No, a big no to that. Do not use these, because this is trying to make it sound as if you are having a direct conversation with the examiner. It's a formal style of writing, so no we and you can use third person. Like, if an individual, if a teacher, if a child, take examples like these maybe, but don't say if you do this, if we do this. Don't do that. And when you're giving an example, have a more formal way of giving an example, which could be, for instance, to illustrate, to exemplify, rather than putting let's look at, let's talk about, let's take an example. No let's, no we, no you. I hope we all got a bit of understanding to what are the common mistakes that are there in IELTS writing. Do watch out the space so that you can know what are other connected areas with regard to listening, reading, even speaking, so that you can get more insight about this exam. And we also have live classes about which you can interact with our team. I'm sharing their number here for you all, and you can get to understand your own training needs and take help from our team, which can help you not just with IELTS, but also for your further application to whichever country you are targeting. Right? So I hope that you got some insight to how you need to deal with your IELTS writing section, everybody. Take care of all these pointers. I hope you had taken notes, and ensure you avoid them. Work on it step by step with the right guidelines, with proper practice. You can definitely reach the highest possible score. It's all a matter of time and right practice. So, with this, I would like to end it here. That's all for today. It was a lovely time interacting with you all. All the best for your entire journey ahead, and fly soon, all of you.